Now, socialism has been a bit of a hot topic on The View as of late, since, of course, obviously the win of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. So, I did a segment a while back where Meghan McCain went on basically a rant about socialism in Venezuela, basically saying that policies like Medicare for all, a living wage, and tuition-free public college will lead to people eating rats and losing like a third of their body weight. Well, that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It's not routed in factual reality, right? In reality, of course, Medicare for all, living wage are incredibly popular policies. But to her, it's like, oh no, that's horrible, horrible socialism, terrible Venezuela, right? So now after that, and after she got a ton of backlash, she goes from Venezuela eating rats to basically, okay, look, I understand you like these policies, but how do we pay for it? How do we pay for it? It's going to be so expensive that we're going to be paying double the tax rates that we pay now. Oh my God. And if you're a rich person, that means you're like maybe a rich person or a corporation, you might now end up paying 40% instead of 20%. I know, shock, horror, right? And for the average person, of course, middle class person, that would be a significant boost in taxes because right now, there are wealthy corporations and people who are rich that are actually paying less as a percentage in their taxes as people in the middle class, which is insanity. But anyway, here's what Meghan McCain actually said. Quote, I know discussing socialism on the show triggers everyone in the world, that I'm against it. I get people are for it. I'm 100% against it. 100%. Maybe she should give away her Social Security card. It's not like she's going to need Social Security anyway. She's incredibly wealthy, so, and the daughter of obviously a famous congressman. So, hey, you know what? You're against socialism? Okay, well, stop driving on roads, stop using the internet, stop using all these different things that are actually funded, that were publicly funded by tax dollars of other people. Anyway, now she says, quote, Bernie Sanders says Medicare for all would cost $32.6 trillion over the next 10 years. I believe at a certain point, explain how we're going to pay for it. If everyone is for it, you have to pay the 70% or 80% taxes that they are proposing. For one, nobody actually proposed 70 to 80% taxes. Now, maybe that's in reference to an offhand comment or a previous comment by Senator Sanders saying that, yes, there was a time in American history where rich people paid 90%. Of course, they get into marginal tax rates and things like that, so over any dollar made over a certain amount of money is taxed at a certain percentage. It's kind of how marginal tax rates work, right? And so, is there any nuance in that discussion when it comes from the right wing? Absolutely not. They just say that, oh my God, if you do higher marginal taxes on the rich, say you made over $3 million or $5 million last year, and then anything over that $5 million is taxed at 40% or 50%, they equate that to, no, everybody, middle class people, poor people, everybody is going to end up paying 50% of their income in taxes, which is a completely disingenuous argument, but that's what we're arguing against, right? But anyway, and look, nobody's even making that argument that we want to pay 70 to 80 or 50% in taxes in order to fund these programs. And you wouldn't have to. The numbers just don't bear that out. For example, there's a recent study I covered in the show from the Koch brothers Libertarian Mercatus Institute, right? So these are Koch-funded libertarians. They're like, oh, small government, less spending, and we need to shrink the size of government so we can save money, and the deficits are the worst thing that could ever happen. So they just did this study, right? And they said that we would save over $2 trillion over the next 10 years if we actually switched to a Medicare for all single payer system. So right now, we already pay trillions of dollars in healthcare expenses, and that is expected to grow. Our current for-profit system is actually incredibly expensive compared to a single-payer socialized system. Now, here's the thing. We would save money. That would not mean that we're dramatically increasing taxes. If it saves us money over our current system, that means we'd be paying less for our healthcare system. And though the primary method of paying for it would actually be to increase taxes, that would be offset from what you would no longer be spending on health insurance premiums. So you wouldn't have health insurance premiums anymore. So you end up spending less money, even though you'll see a slight bump in your payroll taxes and your take home. But anyway, that study from the Mercatus Institute was actually an incredibly conservative estimate. And I'm not saying conservative because it was from a conservative think tank. It's that the numbers, the assumptions were incredibly conservative. Like, oh no, more people are going to use healthcare, and you're not going to save quite as much as they say when it comes to administrative costs. When actually Medicare has incredibly low administrative costs, and in that study, they still said that it would be higher administrative costs than what Medicare actually runs at. So that's what I mean when I say conservative, right? Now, other studies have shown the savings to be in the range of $15 to $17 trillion over the next 10 years for Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All system, right? So here we have the facts, right? And now that we have that context, so now there's a little bit of crosstalk between Joy Behar and Meghan McCain, and that's always enjoyable because Joy Behar is actually progressive, and she's one that is definitely in favor of a Medicare for All plan. Now, she explained that many countries make healthcare a human right and yet still end up having similar tax rates as the United States, debunking her argument that you've got to raise taxes 70 to 80% just to pay for it. Her response is, small European countries. So let's take that for a second, right? So she makes the argument, well, okay, look, you could do it in a small country like the UK or in Germany or Belgium or the Netherlands, Finland, Sweden, every other industrialized country. We can't do it here because we're too big. It's too big, and we just wouldn't be able to afford it, right? So she ignores the fact that we spend per capita, right, twice as much per person in healthcare expenses than these other countries. Why is the United States spending twice as much per person on healthcare than other countries do? It's because it's a for-profit system. It is the system that is flawed here, and the system actually works just as well in a small country as it would in a larger country because what we have here is an economy of scale. So you end up having more money going into the system because of so many people that are now going to be paying into it through slightly increased taxes, but you're still going to have that savings because there will be no gigantic, significant rush for healthy people to go and use healthcare. There will be a rush from people who are, sick, who are just starting to get healthcare, and they're like, oh, finally I can go and see a doctor. And you'll see more preventative medicine as well, which does save money in the long run. So, of course, she is wrong again on the facts. Now, she also, Behar also asked her, do you believe healthcare is a privilege of some sort, or is it a guarantee? And McCain responds, quote, I believe there is a reason that people in Canada come to get better healthcare. So it's that statement that perked up Canadian Twitter. I'm just calling it Canadian Twitter, but Twitter's just Twitter, right? There's a lot of Canadian people on Twitter, and they're like, really? Oh, we're going to have to jump in here. In fact, Elaine Lamagna, she responded on Twitter, and I got a bunch of great tweets for you on this. Meghan McCain talked about Canadians coming here for healthcare. I lived with them in Sun Lakes, Arizona. They could not wait to get back to Canada for their healthcare. Hashtag Meghan uninformed. Okay, there's more. Lisa tweets in, the cost of healthcare in the United States is $3.2 trillion. Cost in Canada, $240 billion. Yes, Canada has a lower population, but again, when you look per capita, they still spend far less than we do per person. They said Americans are paying more for less coverage. People are going bankrupt trying to get health care. And guess what? If somebody is ill at the hospital, it still costs to treat them even if they can't pay. That's true. Who ends up eating that cost? We do through higher insurance premiums. And because of higher cost per service that the hospital charges the insurance companies. Hio Kirby says, Meghan McCain, come to Canada and witness our healthcare. I work for McGill University in Montreal, and we are baffled at how wrong you are about healthcare. I have several American friends who visited Canada and wish they had it. I actually went to college with somebody who was a dual Canadian/American citizen. She gets healthcare, and she looks at our system and is like, who would want this? Who would want this kind of system? No, I will take my Canadian healthcare. But of course, the kind of person that doesn't want that is somebody who's already incredibly wealthy and has a lot of privilege, a la Ted Cruz, who renounced his Canadian citizenship. But anyway, Julian McLeod says, Canadians who head south are actually snowbirds. Do so to escape the winter. So that's explaining the throngs of Canadians that come here and maybe end up needing health care, right, when they're here. It said the 2% who seek health care in the U.S. may feel a second opinion might extend their lives. Canada's health care, which is provincial, not federal, is a great success. Healthy population makes sense. Whereas Republicans think, no, an unhealthy population makes much more sense because we would like to punish poor people for being poor. And if that means that you have terrible health outcomes and you die early, well, that's your fault. Maybe you shouldn't have been lazy, you mooch. Now, and it just shows you kind of the mindset of these Republicans. Now, B. Scarborough says, as a Canadian, we do not go to the USA for healthcare. We go to get away from the snow. Your healthcare is too expensive and no better than here. Meghan McCain, that is fake news. Oh, I like that use of fake news. Barb Janicek says, Meghan McCain doesn't even know what snowbirds are. Retired Canadians live in southern states during Canadian winter. For the weather, they return to Canada for the health care. Remus Ulba says, FYI, approximately 45,000 Canadians go to the U.S. each year for medical procedures, while 1.5 million Americans go to other countries for medical procedures. So don't diss Canada's medical system. And that's why you have something called, and this is an insane thing to have when you think about it, medical tourism. Ron Placone, a good friend of mine, went to Mexico for dentistry. Took a trip, because it's actually cheaper to take a trip to another country to get medical care or dental care or something, because they have these systems, than it is in America. So you get like a vacation and you get a medical procedure done in the same time. It's medical tourism. It's an insane industry that is spawned by an insane system. Now, furthermore, let me give you one more tweet here because this is fun. Hey, The View, read the story about healthcare in Canada and look at the tweets. We have a great healthcare, and our taxes are not 70 to 80%. And so that's pretty simple, right? Now, let me go back to the hosts here. Co-host Sunny Hostin said, quote, I think healthcare is a human right. It's a human right. McCain said, in response to that, we're just having a debate. We're just having a debate of whether or not people deserve healthcare. Like, humanity should take care of each other and should take care of its own, and make sure that everybody has healthcare and everybody has access to a doctor, right? Now, she said, I think the problem with this is, don't paint me out to be. It's very complicated on the show. No, it's not. It's not complicated. Either you are for everybody getting health care or you are not for everybody getting health care, because the only way to deliver that health care efficiently is not through the private market. It's not through the free market. It's actually through a socialized healthcare system, because it's not as if this hasn't been done before. It's been done in every other place except for the United States. And actually, even here in the United States, it's been done to a limited degree with Medicare. And you ask anybody who has Medicare, they're happy to have it, even if it doesn't cover certain things, and it doesn't. There are definite loopholes to it. There's a donut hole where private coverage, of course, has been squeezed in. But overall, you ask somebody, hey, give up your Medicare, they'll laugh in your face. Even the hardest Trump supporter, who is 65 or older, was on Medicare, you ask them to give that up because it's socialism, they'll be like, it's not socialism, I paid for it. I like Medicare. Don't get your goddamn government hands on my Medicare. And then they froth. It really is kind Quite disturbing to see that. But anyway, she said, I'm just trying to talk about the realities of what it's going to cost. But again, she glosses over what the reality actually is. It's not that my heart doesn't open. I just admitted on national television that my perspective changed after my father got sick. Don't say I believe in all these things. It's making me seem non-compassionate. I'm not. But she ignores the reality. Again, the reality is all the facts and statistics that I had given you before. How we spend twice as much than every other country. That our health outcomes are actually worse than in other countries with single payer. That people do not come over here for most medical, procedures and things. Yes, sometimes there's a lot of elective procedures like plastic surgery that people from other countries will come over, or to get a second opinion, or if they're wealthy and they're doing their own sort of thing that maybe, the National Health Service of whatever country they live in decided not to do. Either way, what's going on here in America is that we end up paying more and we get less. And you know what they call that? They call that stupid. We're getting ripped off by these insurance companies, while there is an obvious solution that will not only cut costs, but also ensure that everybody has health care. And admittedly, the Canadian system is not a perfect system. There are things that are missing. Just like Medicare is not a perfect system. Just like in a lot of other countries that have socialized medicine, they don't necessarily have a perfect system because there is no such thing as a perfect system. But at least what they have is a blueprint that is better than what we have going right now. So, on Meghan McCain, of course, it should come as no surprise that I believe she is so uninformed, so laughably uninformed that it hurts. And look, if you want to, and I'm being super kind to her saying that she's uninformed, because I don't necessarily know if she's willfully just stingy and doesn't want to pay more in taxes so that other people can get health care. And maybe that's true. And I know some of you will probably agree with that, but I think there's a lot when it comes to healthcare. There's just so much misinformation, so much, emphasis placed on the word socialism to scare the crap out of older people, out of believing into policies that actually do work and will demonstrably make life better for millions of people in America. So I don't know if it's just the fact that she's ignorant, willfully ignorant, uninformed, or malicious. Either way, what the point is that she is absolutely wrong. And we need a Medicare for all system, and we need it now. We cannot wait any longer.